This is the rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shout it loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
So, welcome everybody to another episode of the Eric Dawson Radio Show. Kevin Jenkins will be calling in from a remote location today. Hope all is well with him. And I believe Diane L. Murray Clements at some point will be calling in as well. What I want to do is, I guess, try to get straight to it for me. And when they call in, we can get into some other things. If you listen to, and we chose the intro to the show for a reason. So it talks about fighting back. It talks about rising up. It talks about us coming together and tearing down, bringing down a system of oppression, a system of bigotry, a system of racism, that we have to bring it down. We have to first agree that we have a plight, that we're in trouble, and then we have to focus on the thing that is creating the problem, and then we have to be committed to tearing it down. And then at the end of the song, you have Representative Ayanna Presley say, if you're not prepared to come and to fight, then don't show up. If you're not prepared to represent that which that you say you represent, then don't even show up. If you are too cowardly and you're concerned about being marginalized and being demonized and radicalized and criminalized and all of those things, then don't even show up, because the fight at hand requires courage, it requires commitment, it requires steadfastness. And if you're not prepared to bring those things to the battlefield, because it is a battle, then don't even show up. And if you don't believe it's a battle, just drive through the neighborhoods of the urban cities and you'll see a lot of them look like battlefields. Burnt down buildings, torn down buildings, dilapidated buildings, filth all over the place, poverty off the chain. It is a battle. So it brings me to this very, very specific thing. Last night, somebody tagged me in a thread and said that Senator Rice of New Jersey, that he is endorsing Joe Biden. And again, this show starts off by saying accountability starts now. See, so when we turn the lights on here and we go live, it's about accountability. Accountability on your part as a voter, as a resident, as a citizen. Accountability here with me, the co-hosts, and other contributors to the show, and the politicians, the faith-based leaders, and those who run these failing nonprofit organizations. We all have to step up. We can't look at what's going on in our cities and not say that we have to lay some blame everywhere. Which is why when I look at the failings of Governor Murphy, I raise my hand and I say, I'm accountable. I'm accountable. I'm responsible for some of that. When I look at some of the other folks like Dwayne Warren in Orange, I say first I was accountable for getting him elected. I was accountable. I worked with him to help him get elected. When I look at Caputo and I look at Cleo Tucker, I say I was accountable for getting them elected. I bear some responsibility. When I was criticizing Marquise Lewis for his failings and for the fact that he raised his hand and took a position as president of the Board of Education, which he had no business taking, I took accountability for that. And then in taking accountability for all of it, I said, I need to do my part in making it right. I stood right here before all of you and said, that was wrong. And now I have to make it right. The challenge is that when you make mistakes, when you go and you vote for elected officials and then they fail, do you have the courage to be accountable for your decision? And can you stand up and can you say, I was wrong? And then can you do the necessary work to make it right? And then this kind of falls into this narrative where we as foundational Black Americans, or ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, are crying out that America needs to look at their wrongdoing and make it right, that they need to repair. But we don't have the courage to make the repairs in our own neighborhoods when we do things that are wrong. I have a caller, and I'm going to continue. Caller?
Good morning, Eric Dawson.
Oh, good morning, Kevin Jenkins.
Did I call on the right number?
Accountability starts now. Starts right now, Kevin. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. So what I was saying.
Some of your conversations. So go ahead. I'm going to let you finish.
And so now, in the article that was sent to me about Senator Rice, he's got to be held accountable for decisions that he's making. There's no way. And I look, I'm going to do this. I want to invite Senator Ron Rice to come here on the Eric Dawson Radio Show and explain to you, because a lot of you are his constituents. I want him to explain to you why he believes that in this day and time, Joe Biden is the right person for you. See, I understand why Joe Biden is the right person for Ron Rice's political career and for Ron Rice's personal agenda. But he's not elected to represent himself and his own personal interests. He's not elected to do his own business dealings. He was elected to represent you. And so I think that he owes it. But you have to demand it. Demand it. That he don't hide behind an article that appears in the paper and then goes about his business, but that he comes forward and is willing to answer questions by callers who will call in, and there'll be no filters. But we have no more time for this nonsense. They have to be accountable, and accountability starts here. What's going on, Kevin?
Hey, good morning. I see you on fire this morning. You are fire. You are fire this morning.
Look, we can't, Kevin.
Yeah.
How do we reasonably, and I'm challenging people to this, how do we sidestep Black folk in our community and don't hold them accountable, but then we want to look at America and we want to say, well, we want to hold America accountable. We want to look from 1619 to now, and we want to say, America, you've been a dirty dealer. You have set policies in place that have destroyed us, right? And we want you to come truthful with it, and then we want you to repair the damage. Got it. But what is different when we look at these poverty pimping politicians who have done harm to our community by way of selling garbage as hope and double dealing behind doors and doing their own business instead of the business of the people, and then we're not asking them to be accountable for that and then to repair the damage that they've done? What's the difference?
Well, let's talk about Joe Biden for a second. Because first of all, I can't tell you who to support. I can't tell Diane who to support. I can't tell anybody who to support. When I say the word support, I'm saying that in a political, I'm using it as a political term. But let's just talk about who Joe Biden is. So people, when they do go and vote, irregardless of who supports who, they know what this guy did and how he worked against us every day while he was the vice president, while he was a congressman, and while he was a senator, U.S. senator. And when it comes to the credit card industry, he protected them. He allowed them to not suffer any penalty with regards to what they did to these young people and these student loans. And I mean, just this one person worked for that industry all of his life. When it comes to incarceration of black men in this country, he was the top lobbyist in on Capitol Hill supporting the expansion of the mass incarceration in this country. Right? This is just two things. I mean, here's a guy that sat before Congress and said he came and talked to black people about birth control and basically said we were animals on the floor. I mean, we have a record of what he's done to have a negative impact on our lives. So when the informed press thinks about who they're going to vote for, how could you possibly vote for a guy? And I could go on and on and on and on about his record.
I want to read something that was in the Guardian, Kevin.
I just want to. I'm sorry. No.
I want to read something that was in the Guardian. That was in the Guardian. It says, "It looks like middle-class Joe has perfected the art of taking big contributions, then representing his corporate donors at the cost of middle and working class Americans. Firstly, Biden's support for finance over working class Americans. His career was bankrolled by the credit card industry." You spoke about that. Secondly, health care. On April 25th, the day he announced his campaign, Biden went straight to a fundraiser co-hosted by the chief executive of a major health insurance corporation. He refuses to sign a pledge to reject money from the insurance and pharma execs and continues to raise money from health care industry donors. Number 3, climate change. Biden signed a pledge not to take money from the fossil fuel industry, then broke his promise right after a CNN town hall on climate change. He held a fundraiser hosted by the founder of the fossil fuel conglomerate. So those are just 3. There are more. There are lots more. And again, the question is, it comes down to the basic things that we talked about yesterday. That every vote that we make ought to be about 2 essential things. It ought to be about seizing political power and seizing economic power. And so now the question that we have to ask Senator Rice, right, in his endorsement, in the fact that he's going to go and knock on doors and encourage people to vote for Joe Biden now. How is this effort going to advance foundational black Americans seizing political power and seizing economic power? And if it doesn't do those 2 things, if we're not advancing that cause or those causes, then why are we voting for Joe Biden? Why would you ask anybody to vote for Joe Biden? Why would you, in your leadership position, with the platform you have, suggest in any way, shape, or form that folks should vote against their best interests? If we agree that the best interest is seizing economic power and seizing political power. I'm sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
No. What the question of the day is, I mean, after you outline what the Guardian has said about him, you know, I supported somebody in the last election for governor. It's been a great disappointment. And I've admitted that. I've talked about it on the show. And, you know, we should all be given an opportunity to correct our mistakes in some sort of way.
Yeah.
So I'm one for saying that. I will correct my mistakes in front of people and say, listen, I made a mistake. You know, I should have thought better, but I didn't. So I got to wear that. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure I do all the things that will correct, you know, what I see unfolding in front of me that's hurting the people that I care about, which are people in the city of Newark and, you know, in the greater New Jersey area. So, you know, so him supporting this young man, supporting Biden, not young man, him supporting Biden, I hope he gets an epiphany that, you know, maybe that might not have been the best choice. And I don't know what went into him making that choice. But I know what's going to make me not make the choice and make a choice of not voting for Biden because of his history. And because of the history we've talked about. This is not the first time we've talked about Biden on this show. I don't think any black American, you know, right now, standing and sitting, you know, and walking anywhere on this planet and in this country should be voting for Biden, Joe Biden. No one. Look, you just gave a perspective of who Joe Biden is. we can't even really go into all of the things we know about him because it'll take us a whole show.
Right.
So I think that we have to really do some introspective. That's the word, introspection about who all of these people are, and when they make these decisions, what kind of impact it has on us. And that's where I'm at with this now. I'm saying to myself, look what I did. Look at it. Look at the decision I made. A couple of times in my life that has had a negative impact on people's lives, and it pains me that I have to say that, but it is true. And I'm being more, maybe because I'm older, Eric, I'm being a little bit more deliberative, I guess, about how I make my decisions now. And when I look at Biden, and I follow his record, and I follow what he's done while he's been in office, he's made one thing crystal clear. He doesn't have my back. He doesn't have my people's back. He doesn't have, little Malik's back up at whatever the school is we want to call it. You can say you can pick any one of these schools. He doesn't have our back. And I saw a lot of people talking about Biden and the endorsement yesterday. But I'm glad we're talking about the whole thing, because now it's getting ready to get funky in this election cycle now.
Right.
Now you're going to go to Iowa. Now you're going to go to New Hampshire. So we got to drill down on him even more. We have to drill down on Klobuchar even more. We have to drill down on Pete Buttigieg even more. Just like we took Bloomberg to task, and we know his record. And what does he come out with? He comes out with a pandering plan to help lift black people up, which clearly identifies that, to me, that he knew that where black people were along when he was the mayor of New York.
Well, look, I just think that people have to continue to work hard. I think that Iowa, I think that New Hampshire, I think that Arizona are fait accompli as far as Joe Biden is concerned. He's not leading in any of those states at this point, right? Not one of them. And so part of my challenge, again, is for Senator Rice, and this is where local politics, where I say to folks, you got to take care of your own house before you try to take care of somebody else's. So in our own community, we got a guy that we need to deal with now, and we need to hold accountable. We don't need to look at the hearings regarding impeachment, right? Because we've already concluded that the system that produced Donald Trump exists, and these folks are just propping that system up. I just got something in my inbox before the show went on that somebody in Union, an elected official in Union, just pleaded guilty for embezzlement. Yesterday we talked about all of the people in Orange who are going to wind up going to jail. We talk about the missing malfeasance in the city of Newark, and the people who were around that mayor have gone to jail. So it's not just at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It's all over the place. All over the place.
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, Eric, yeah, and you're right. We talked about corruption yesterday. I mean, we talked about the examples of corruption. But let me say this. As I've just said a couple of seconds ago, that I've made some decisions when I supported people and I saw the impact of it. I think the way that you deal with this is when you go to the polls, and this is what we're actually saying. You don't go to the polls and be a commodity to somebody else's wealth. Go for power and economic, for power and economic opportunity, or whatever you say. You say it so eloquently, right? So the way that we can send a message is that we don't vote for Joe Biden. The way that we can send a message is that we tell every friend, every person we know, we can't vote for that guy, right? And I think if we send that kind of signal to the politicos of this state and the politicos of this country, it'll have a better impact. It'll have a real impact. Outside of South Carolina, I think that, his campaign is dead, and of course the establishment is going to keep him alive. But I think that we really need to, really send a message in this next political cycle that we're not voting for people like that. We're not entertaining people like that. They don't have our best interests, and we should push back. And I think that our job and the solution to disqualify any of these kinds of things is to tell people, don't vote for this guy.
Right. I think, but I think beyond that,
for this guy.
I think beyond that, and we said that we were going to talk about down ballot today. So I think this is a perfect segue for down ballot. So when you have, so what I'm going to say is this, because Diane asked us to explain down ballot. Down ballot is, so you have, when you go to vote, or the way that political parties put tickets together, is they have the top of the ticket. And that top of the ticket, they usually believe is the most attractive, magnetic personality or talent that they have, that can draw from a broad range of voters, right? So that's the top of the ticket. And then you have down ballot, which are like pillars, which support the top of the ticket. And in each of those down ballot candidates, within their own rights, has, so down ballot meaning governor, meaning U.S. senator, meaning Congress folks. If you got county executive races, you got freeholder races, assembly races, you got state senate races, and in some cases you may have county committee races going on. You'll have council races and mayor races. So all of those are down ballot of the top candidate, right? So let's assume right now that Joe Biden is the top of the ticket. Now you have all of those people underneath him. So when you guys get your ballots in the mail and you look across the Democrat line or you look across the Republican line, you'll see the top of the ticket, right? So this is a presidential election year. So the top of the ticket will be the president. When you're off presidential years, the top of the ticket will be a governor, right? So then you'll have all of those other positions. And the idea behind the party is that top of the ticket drags along with them all of those other people. And in a lot of cases, guys, they're dragging garbage with them, right? But what happens is you're so focused on the top of the ticket. So you're so focused on either getting rid of Donald Trump or voting for Joe Biden or voting for somebody else that you don't pay attention to the down ballot candidates. And then what they say to you in New Jersey is vote line A. So now when you go to vote line A, you're voting for, they propped up the top of the ticket. They hid the garbage at the bottom of the ticket or those down ballot candidates, and you're just going and you're pushing. That's why we say you're being herded like cattle, because they're not explaining to you who all of these other people are. They're simply saying to you, vote for this one, and then vote line A all the way. And then they wind up getting all this garbage in. And a lot of that garbage, these are people who have done no work to organize people within the community. They've built no constituency. They've done nothing. So they don't owe the people a damn thing. They owe the party everything, because they went and sold their soul in a back room to have their name put down ballot. And the party said, you don't have to worry about anything. We're going to raise the money for you. We're going to have all of these other people co-sign you and endorse you. And then we're going to stamp our brand line A on it. That's down ballot. That's how it works. That's me being an insider explaining that to you. And so now, when I say we need to hold accountable those people who are supporting this system. So now, Senator Rice is down ballot, right? He's down ballot, and he's supporting a system that is doing harm, has done harm to us. And so outside of just not voting for Joe Biden, we have to begin to deal with those people who continue to prop up a failed and dangerous system. We have to ask, why do you hate me so much? Why are you so anti-black? That you're going to go and tell us to vote against our interests, which are economic power and political power. That's what we need to do. And so when we talk about down ballot, we talk about, how this whole thing works. You focusing up here at the president doesn't do anything, because you still don't have economic and political power. Once you seize control of the down ballot seats, starting at the district leader level, all the way up, once you own those, then you can tell a guy like Senator Rice, oh, hell no, we're going to tell you who to vote for, because we are clear about what our best interests are, which is seizing political and economic power. But he didn't ask anybody's permission, and he should be asking your permission, because he comes and he asks for your vote. I'm sorry, Kevin. I'm I'm Roger.
No.
I'm heated today,
I
but I
thought
want people to
I thought
understand the
you were on fire.
connectivity.
Hey, listen, let me just say something to you. One of the things that on the show that I appreciate, we can have different views or come at things differently, right? But we share the same values. We actually believe that our single focus should be economic power and political power, right? That should be our primary goal to change the things that we talk about every day on the show. That circular conversation we're having. And I think that personally, myself, yourself, and all of us need to, be brought to task, or we need to be paying close attention to the decisions that we make, because it's going to have a long-term impact. And if we don't stay focused on this whole economic power, political power narrative, and make that a living, breathing, reality for ourselves, we know that we're going to be wiped off the face of the planet. So I think however you come at it, whatever you're saying, and when I'm listening to you, I can see the outrage, and I can see that, and I respect that, because you're articulating it to me where I can understand how it's going to impact me, how it's going to impact my grandkids, how it's going to impact my neighborhood for the moment, right? I mean, as far as neighborhood community, we go back and forth, but we know why we say neighborhood, because we don't have a community, because a lot of the things that we're talking about, we probably would not have to entertain if we were focused on the community part of it. But so when I'm listening to you, and I respect not just your passion, but your intellect when it comes to having these discussions. And that's why when we talk to the Informed class, like Diane said, we have to break down what a down ballot is. But I want to say something very simple about down ballot. When you go to vote for your mayor, for your council, for your freeholder, for your state senator, for your assemblyman, and all of those people from your school board up, you have to ask yourself, are any of these people representing the existential threat that we've talked about on this show over and over and over and over again? You have to have that in your mind. So when you go vote for the school board, are these people representing me, or they're representing someone else? Are they fighting for me, or they're fighting for someone else? There has to be a list, of questions you have to ask yourself. Are you just voting because you're a Democrat, or are you voting for your survival? Are you just voting because you like somebody, or you're voting for economic power, political power? That you have to, and like we said on the show yesterday, Eric, we are in the midst of, re-engineering our minds, so we can become more concerned about ourselves as opposed to somebody else. And I think that if people go to the polls with that on their mind, they might make better choices. You might make some better choices than I've made. Hopefully. I want that. I want everybody to make better choices. I want everybody to ask that question. Because a lot of the times when I did do things politically, it was more business related. And I really, when I was younger, I might just have missed that. Some things I did very, very well, but when it came to that, sometimes I might have gotten it all damn wrong, because I'm engaged in business when I think about those things. But I should have personalized it a little bit more. So I'm hopeful that people, when they go to the polls and they think down ballot, so if you think about your governor, if you think about your assemblyman, if you think about all of those people that you see every day not working on your behalf, that you would make a better decision, that you would work for your survival as opposed to the Democratic Party's survival, that you would work for your children as opposed to someone else. You know what I mean?
Yep. And I thought about it, because I tell you, in real life, man, you guys are watching me evolve, right, and transition. I thought about a couple things that Farrakhan said yesterday regarding separating, and this is separating, right? This is separating from a Democratic Party. This is separating from a tradition, separating from that and saying, you know what? The way that you all do business, I can't do business like that anymore, because it is killing me. It is killing my family. And that's where the separation needs to begin. I get and we all do on our Facebook, right? You get these memories that pop up. Well, there was a memory 3 years ago, and I can't believe it was that long ago already, but 3 years ago we were down in Pennington Court. Remember, I was giving away the food, Kevin? I was partnered with Trader Joe's, and it was 3 years ago that we were down in Pennington Court, and and being threatened by the Barack administration going down and giving food to folks who needed it, and we showed up down there anyway, and they had their security people come by and try to intimidate folks for not getting food. And I sat and watched the video, and all of those people who were holding hands and praying, and we were giving out all of this food, and I'm looking 3 years later, and so when I say that nothing has transformatively changed. So when people say, well, what work are you doing? What are you doing? Who's putting in work in the community, right? So 3 years ago, I thought, well, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe I should be listening to those people, right? We talk about solutions. You say, Eric, stop it. So I said, you know what? Okay, boom. I ran out there, created this relationship with Trader Joe's. We got a van, we got all of those things. And man, we were lugging boxes all over, not just North, but Essex County, right? Giving food out. All of those people that we were giving food out to, who were crying when we showed up, talking about their level of poverty, their inability to pay their bills, and their thankfulness that we were there so that they didn't have to cut their prescription pills in half so that they could go and buy food. All of those people are still in their same situation 3 years later. 3 years later. 3 years later, same situation. So now I say, well, okay, what do we do now? You keep lugging the food around, keep putting gas in the van, keep driving around, keep doing all that stuff? Or do we finally say, you know what? The way out of this ditch is to seize economic and political power. Not to keep buying into a system where we herd our people together and we just keep throwing loaves of bread and fish at them. You see, because that's what they would have you believe, that that's the way out, and it's not. The tires are still spinning. Go look. I mean, Kevin, I woke up this morning and I saw the memory and I'm like, oh my God. And then I started to understand what Martin Luther King said when he said, I fear that I've brought my people into a burning building. Nothing's changing until you seize economic and political power, until you separate from this mindset. Nothing is going to transformatively or radically change for you. Nothing. Go look, 3 years ago, those same people, if I go there today with a box of food, I guarantee you that some of those same people, their circumstances have not changed. But we have the same black faces in political spaces. We have the same black faces behind pulpits. We have the same black faces running nonprofit organizations. So when we say that they're pimping poverty, that they're managing poverty, that's all they're doing. So if I continue to drive that goddamn van, all I would be doing is managing their poverty. All I would be doing is dealing with people who are on a hospice, making them feel comfortable while they're dying.
Well, that is what we call on the Eric Dawson show, the Black Dilemma. I mean, everything you're saying is absolutely correct.
So now call me a hater. But call me a hater, but tell me I'm not telling the truth. Now you can call me a hater, see, because what you're hating is that I'm exposing you. But you can't deny one thing that I said and say it's not factual.
Yeah. Well, you said a mouthful there, Eric Dawson.
So now the question is, what are you
I'm not
going
to step on that.
So the question is, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do? I saw in one of the posts where I put up about Ron Rice, somebody said, oh, Eric, you're just sad. I said, let me walk you up 18th that I'm just sad in pointing these things out. I said, let me walk you up 18th Avenue. Let me walk you down South Orange Avenue. You tell me that's not sad. What are we talking about here? And then the fact that folks don't push back on, for me to push back on that person is a waste of my time. What I'm saying to you is this, guys. That person doesn't have your best interest at heart. And the fact that you can't see that says that there's a deeper psychosis than I thought existed.
Well, Eric, what happens, and we see it every day. You know, you talked about managing poverty, but I think that we are in a black Disney state of mind. That, you know, we turn on our TVs, we open up various newspapers, and we see that 1.5% or 0.5% of black people in America are doing well, and they see hope in that. And that's that Disney state of mind. And I think that what happens when you have this kind of conversation, you're breaking that sickness, that fever, that virus that we have, and you're making us look at reality as it is, not as what they're promoting and not at what they're marketing. It hasn't gotten any better for black Americans in this country, and it is time that we confront that, and it's time that we take off those Disney glasses that they have put on us to think that somewhere down the line there's some hope somewhere, which I believe in hope, but not hope based on their mousetrap, not hope based on their business plan, but hope based on the work that we're going to put in. And if you're going to go and continue to vote and think that outcome is going to, the way that you've been voting, and think that that's going to be a better outcome for you, then you are right. I mean, our group of people in this country are just going to perish. They're going to die. And you're absolutely right about that. And so when you confront this every day the way you do, you know, you got to know the way I do, or you do, or Diane does, or any of the other callers and any other informed class members, you really create this stark reality. It's shocking to hear someone talk like this every day. It's shocking to have someone question, you know, our logic. It's shocking to tell somebody when you take off those glasses what you see out there. It's shocking. So when they say you're sad, when they say that, see, that's a person that wants to keep the black Disney glasses on. They don't want to know what's out there, even though it's happening to them in real time, even though it's happening in their workspace, even though it's happening in their churches, even though their kids are being impacted by it. Some people, the virus has taken them over, and those are the people that we just need to push to the side.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of this conversation. I'm glad that I'm taking off those Disney glasses, those black Disney glasses. I'm glad I'm seeing the world for what it is. I am unplugged. I see the code. I see the girl in the red dress, right? Matrix, right? Yeah. I see it. And what we're trying to do is re-engineer our people, all of us. I mean, everybody. White people have to be re-engineered, right? Black people definitely have to be re-engineered. And we have to understand what our space in this world, and how, if we are going to interact, that we have to understand the damage that's been done. The damage has been done, and we have to continue to talk about it. I can't talk about the basketball game. I love basketball, but that is not on the forethought of my mind. Now, is that a release for people? Can people go see that? But that's not my priority. My priority is to try to unplug as many people as I can.
And you know what? Using the movie The Matrix, Kevin, and it's crazy, man. Do you remember the scene? Do you remember the scene where Neo, once he saw the code in the Matrix, the system, in order to try to destroy him, just started sending more and more agents. So they were just pouring out, like Agent Smith just kept reproducing himself to try to destroy him, And as we get closer to the primary, I'm telling you, and we call them slave catchers and we call them Negro whisperers, right? So, but if you watch the movie and you like the movie The Matrix, you can call them agents, right, of the system. So whatever they are, they're gonna start coming out more and more and more. And I saw that over the last couple of days, since I wore that ADOS shirt, I've gotten more and more. So it's not just black folk. There are white folks now who are coming too, because they're like, wait a minute, what is this ADOS thing that he's talking about? What is this empowerment thing that he's now talking about? What is this, seizing economic and political power thing? Oh no, we're going to attack him too. And so the idea now is to destroy this whole conversation, to get into these spaces where we're trying to re-engineer your thinking, right? Not based on what Eric says, not based on what Kevin or Diane says, but based on what facts say. 2053, zero wealth because of the racial wealth gap. Fact.
Well, let me just say this to you. Let me read some of the feed if you don't mind. Antonio Henson, Matthew 26:11. The poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. I got that. All right. See, I get that. I get that, Antonio. Shakima says, whomever made the sad comment about Eric is just ignorant. Cesare just signed on. Hey, Ches. And Dre said, I agree. How do you educate those that are dependent on false promises made by Democrats? Tanisha's on. Oh, Trey says, citizens with political maturity may have to live in exile. Okay. Kathy Fellows says, what can we do? I'm genuinely asking. She says, but the problem is nobody is selling the people fishing rods. Teach people to fish, not to give them fish. And that, I can go on and on and on.
Can I come on two of those things before you go further, Kevin? Just two before I forget, because I'm not in the thread.
Within the feed, yeah.
So two things. One, to Dre, I want to say to you this. Don't isolate the Democrats and not mention the Republicans. See, they're all a part of this system. See, so I'm not beating up on Democrats. I'm beating up on the entire system. You had George Washington state that this two-party system would fail us. So I'm not focused on just one of them. I'm focused on both. Now, to the person who made the comment about people are not selling fishing rods or giving out fish, that's not true. That's not true. Dr. King was talking about fishing rods, and we abandoned him. Malcolm was talking about fishing rods, and we abandoned him. You see, we allowed them to dismiss him, to discredit him, to demonize him, and to destroy him. So there are people who are talking about fishing rods. The question is whether or not we are supporting those people who are talking about fishing rods, or whether, like Kevin said, we're going in our homes, locking our doors, pulling our shades down. But there are people. We have to go and find those people. You got Jason up in Union who's talking about fishing rods. You see, you had Joan Terrell Page over in Jersey City. She's talking about fishing rods. So there are people out there who are talking. You got Donna Jackson talking about fishing rods, but she couldn't get the requisite number of votes on her petition to be on the ballot. So there are people talking about fishing rods. The question is, what are we doing? Or are we just sitting there watching them yell in the wind about fishing rods? Just like you had Noah saying there's a flood coming. There's a flood coming. How many people helped him build that damn ark? Let's take this call. Call or go. Kevin, Kevin, take my coffee pot, Kevin.
I just want to say to the analogy about the fishing rods, when you want to fish, you make your own fishing rod. Simple and plain, right? You know, again, going back to what you said about the feeding the people down in Pennington Court. If they're in the same spot 3 years later, and you're questioning whether, well, if I kept feeding them, they'd just be in the same spot. They still would be doing the same thing. And it's the same thing with the fishing rod analogy, right? That you can, we can give fishing rods all day. It don't mean they're going to fish, right? If you want to fish, you get up and you go and fish. You make your own fishing rod. You find your way. We're not finding our way. We are sitting down and then waiting for Superman, waiting for someone else to do it. You guys say it on the show all day long. So we have to do. I think sometimes when we have our discussions, we forget the discussions we've had previously. This is not about the Democratic Party. It's not about the Republican Party. It ain't. At this point, it's not even about white people. It's about whether or not black people are willing to do something for themselves that no one else is involved in and that no one else helps. And the truth, the majority aren't.
You're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, every man. I got to tell you something, guys. I mean, I don't know what you do after the show, Eric. I know you're all busy, but it takes me a little while to get my stuff together after the show because I don't have those glasses on.
Yeah.
I'm living. I'm seeing it in real time. if I go into the grocery store, if I go to a meeting. I was in the city yesterday at Columbia University, and I was watching that neighborhood of people, right? And I was watching what motivated them. I was watching what they looked like, and I was just paying attention to them. And it's not because they were at Columbia University, but I saw that neighborhood change in the last 15 years, Farrakhan, Eric. And I saw the electricity in that area. All of those people, we don't know all of their socioeconomics. We don't know all of the stuff. But I saw electricity in that neighborhood. I saw people communicating with each other. I see people looked like they had the same values, and they were sharing things. It made me feel good that some people somewhere. Now, some people will say, "Oh, well, they're white now." No. That's too easy. What I'm saying is, but when I look around here, right? When I walk around here, I don't see that electricity. Like, I don't see people in community. I don't see people talking about what you're talking about, Eric, even if it's uncomfortable, talking about what you're talking about, Farrakhan, talking about some of the questions that people in the feed are asking.
Kevin.
There's electricity.
Kevin.
There's no electricity in my community.
Can we narrow it down to say that there's life? There's life over there, and there's death over here. There's life,
that's cool. Yeah, that's good.
and there's death, right? You have people who are fighting to live, and you have people who are waiting to die. That's what you have. People fighting to live. They're fighting for their schools. They're fighting for their neighborhoods. They're fighting to live. And then you have people who are waiting to die. They're just existing. And they're dying. And that's what I keep saying. Hospice. Go to a place.
Back to your book.
But I'm saying go to a place where you see people on hospice.
Right. But think of what you just said, Eric. That goes to the book club. That goes to what the book that we're reading right now, the Willie Lynch.
Absolutely.
Right. That was what that whole training was about. So at the same time, while I'm disappointed in black people, right, I'm not blaming them. Because I actually know that 300 or 400 years ago, someone wrote that plan, right? Someone wrote the plan for 2020 for black folks, right? There was there's one way to put it. Someone wrote that, a couple of hundred years ago. And I'm not just talking about Willie Lynch. He was just one of many that did that, right? Right?
He was part of that corporation that we talk about. Right. That's right.
Right. So with that said, we have to understand that, I don't know how to put it, but the problem, it isn't black people. It's what's been done to us.
I'm going to pause you for a second now.
Right? So that disease that they gave us, that illness, that sickness, whatever you want to call it, whatever they did to us as a people, it has generationally affected us, and then they've kept us in it. And I think it was Kevin that said a little earlier about we need white people need to change, black people need to change. Yeah. I think personally that we have to stop concerning ourselves with what other people need to do. We have to just concentrate on what us. If we try to figure out how to fix white folks and get their minds right, man, we're going to waste all the opportunity of getting out.
So Farrakhan, if you go back to the beginning of the show where I said that the song for the show is not just a song for entertainment, right? It was a song to hopefully arouse the awakening of people that no more bigotry, no more racism, no more of these things, right? So within our community, the community of this informed class that we're building. And then when Representative Presley says, if you're not coming to represent these things, then go away. Go away. If you're not prepared to be a black voice, right? Black face with a black voice representing black people, go away. If you're too concerned about being marginalized and being called a name, then go away. We don't need you. We don't need you. We are at war for survival. I'm telling you. Go walk. If you go and walk up 18th Avenue and you go into a hospice place, there's no difference.
I gotta hang up right now, guys, but I'm gonna keep listening.
But there's no difference,
Okay.
Kevin. You said once on the show, man, walking and looking at the condition of the people, they look like they're in zombie land. I'm saying, go into a place of hospice and go and look at the people.
Yeah.
They literally are just being kept comfortable while they die. So the vibrance that you saw in New York, Kevin, were people who were fighting to live. That's the difference.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about haters, because I want to talk about haters, ask yourself, who hates you enough to keep you in that condition? Who hates you enough? Who despises you enough to keep you in that condition? And so now, when you look, let's go to the book. When you have electeds who know the truth, they know it, but they hate you enough. So we talk about I'm unpacking this for you. We talk about self-hatred. And I remember, Kevin, there were people who used to call on this show. They don't call anymore because we exposed them. But then they talked about us being self-haters, hating black people. Now we see who the self-haters are. Those people who refuse to help you fight for economic and political power, who will use you in the condition that Farrakhan just talked about you being in. They'll use you. They'll leverage that.
I think that this fight that we're having to break the bondage, I think this fight we're having, and as this fight continues, we're going to be losing friends. We're going to be losing people that we thought were our friends. We're going to have major disagreements in our families, and it's going to be painful. But when you're fighting for your existence, all of that comes with it. This is not going to be pretty. This is an internal battle for the souls and the consciousness of black people in this country. And guess what? Majority of the people that are in our way, unfortunately, and it pains me to keep saying this to you because I know it hurts you, are some of those people we just mentioned, your family members, some of your work colleagues, some of the people you go to church with, because they're comfortable with their black denial. And being comfortable with your black denial comes with all those things we talk about all the time. All those things. So you're comfortable with Jim Crow and steroids. You're comfortable with mass incarceration. You're comfortable with the rollback of every right that we had, our full citizenship. You're comfortable with us not having full citizenship. You can't be friends with people like that. You can't. It's impossible. So we're going to be losing a lot of friends when you take on this journey to disconnect from the matrix, to see it in real time. The horror of what's happening in our schools, the horror of what's happening in this country, what's happening to black Americans in this country. We have now drilled it down, right? You said it, Eric. We now know that it's not about being African American. We are American, right? And we know that we are foundational to this country. We know, and there's an awakening, and people are starting to understand that all of the things that we talk about is still happening to us in real time. So you're going to lose some friends. Be prepared.
Know thyself. Know thyself.
Sid says, I wouldn't say everyone that is sitting back are comfortable. I get it. Somewhat tired. Yeah. You know what? I can go with that because guess what? When I get off of this show after talking to you, Eric, I gotta change my mind before I go to talk to someone else. Because I see everything in such real time. So your Sid is right. You're just damn tired.
Listen, you got to take risks, guys. Every single slave that fought to leave the plantation took risks. They all took risks. These people who are not taking any risks, and we were talking about this before. I'm sorry, Kevin? Hello?
Hello?
Oh, I thought you were saying.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize.
But you have to take risks, and so all of these folks who are now co-opting the term progressive, right? Because they just believe, in their level of contempt for you, and they believe the level of ignorance that you have. They believe that you're ignorant. So they believe that all they have to do now is slap the latest slogan on them, progressive, and you'll buy that too because you've bought everything else, right? But it is about taking risks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if we say progressive, and if we are to look and say, you know what, Martin was progressive, right? If that is the marker, let's use that as the marker. Malcolm Martin was, and Malcolm were progressive. Now let's line each of these black electeds and faith-based leaders up next to them, and let's check off the characteristics of Martin and Malcolm. Right? And then let's cancel out the ones who don't measure up. None of them would be there. So why do we keep electing them? Caller, go.
Hey, good morning, guys. I had to pull over again. See you guys.
Hey, listen. Now I don't want you having an accident while you drive.
No, I just wanted to share something that happened early on in my truck driving career. I used to drive an ice truck, and one time I had to make a delivery to a circus, and the ice box was over by the elephant. They had this baby elephant over there. They had the biggest chain on the baby elephant. I said, that's some cool stuff y'all doing to that baby. Then I looked over there at the bigger elephants. They had the same chain on the bigger elephants that they had on the little elephant. Going back to Farrakhan's point, so I said, yo, why y'all got that big chain on there? He said, man, the elephant is so powerful, there's no chain we can put on them that they can break. But if we put the chain on them while they are little babies, going back to the book, he will never know he has the power to break that chain. So all of these people out here that's just grazing, going around, oh, give me that. The worst thing on the planet is people grazing and herds that graze. It just ruins the earth. So going back to y'all earlier points, man, y'all, hit on so many points that we don't know, half the time we don't know the power that we have to break these chains that they have on us. So they will frown on you and say you're sad because you're mustering the strength. Like this little bitty chain, they don't even want you to challenge the chain that they have on our community. And they don't want people to understand that, if they get up and start breaking these chains, we can't capitalize on them like the way we do. Not comparing us to animals or anything like that. But just speaking to the larger point of the Willie Lynch letter, there's a lot of truth to that, man. When y'all were talking, it took me right back to that moment when I saw those elephants with those chains on. We don't know we have the power. So, but I can't stay on the side of the road long here. But great conversation. I'm gonna do my best. All right, have a good day. All right. Yeah, you're fine.
Thanks. Hey, listen, I'm gonna go.
That's a great analogy. That's great though.
Right, but I'm gonna go a step further, and I think Kevin hung up, but he'll call back. What they also say in terms of training elephants, Brother Mike, is this: at some point you can remove the chain. So you'll see elephants with no chain, and they don't believe that they have the power to do anything other than what you tell them to do. So yes, with the baby elephant, they condition them, they socialize them with the chain. But at some point, if you're a good enough trainer, you can remove the chain, and the elephant will still obey you. And what I say is that when you look at our community, they've removed the chain. They don't have it on at all anymore. But they have so deeply conditioned us.
Do you believe that they removed the chain?
Yeah. I think that the physical chain has been removed. The physical chain has been removed, right? So people, there's the illusion, right? So this is the matrix. There's the illusion that we're free, right? Because, I look at you, you look at me, you say, I ain't got no chain on me.
Okay,
right?
Yeah,
But,
I got you. Okay, that was my point. Okay,
Yeah.
I got you. Okay.
So there's the illusion. But I will tell you, like Mike said, these herds of people, these grazers. So when you go, and we talk about this, Kevin, we talk about the people who line up for the water, people who line up for the turkeys, people who line up for the coat drives, people who line up for the toys during Christmas time, people who lined up for the free food, people who keep lining up and 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 lining up. 5 years from now, Kevin, the conditions won't change. 10 years from now, the conditions won't change. And so you have to ask yourself, those people who are giving you that, those people who are conditioning.
I just called him.
Yeah, those people who are continuing to support that conditioning, they're doing more harm to you than good. Call or go.
No, I just want to say, if the chains were broken or taken off, then we wouldn't have legal whisper. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the chains are still there. Like, they use the chains and they tighten them up when they want. That's all. I have a special lady in the chair, Eric, right now, so I got to get back to her. If she's like trying to listen to the show.
All right. Thank you.
So yeah, but it's the psychopathic racial personality, right? We have it. It's real funny when people talk to me about race. And I don't want to have a conversation about race anymore. So somebody said to me the other day, he said, "But Kevin, that doesn't make sense." I said, "I didn't create this. I have to spend my time talking about how we correct, how I correct my community, how I re-engineer my people. I don't have time to talk about your issue with race. I don't have time to talk about your issue with anything because I didn't create this construct. I didn't create Jim Crow. I have to work to get away from that. I have to separate them." I said, because if you need to have that discussion, you need to have it amongst yourself because you all benefit from it. We don't benefit from it. I can't sit in a room and talk to somebody to make them feel good that we're having a dialogue about race. I don't understand. That's not logical to me anymore.
Right.
I don't get it. And when I explained it a little bit more, they were like, "Well, I never thought about it." I said, "Of course not, because I've been participating with you and having this discussion about race, and it's not a good place for me because I didn't define whiteness in America. Thomas Jefferson did. I didn't call a black man 3/5 of a man. Thomas Jefferson did. I didn't, the founding fathers built this country on trading black bodies. I didn't do that. Your founding fathers did that. I mean, I could go on and on and on. So you need to rectify. You need to do some truth and reconciliation in your own space.
Right.
I'm not trying to make you comfortable with what you've done and what you've benefited from.
Right.
And now because you want to admit that to me doesn't make me all cousins. Because that's an admission. So you've admitted it. So you know it. So you should go and try to do something about it. Because I know your plan is not working to benefit the people that I'm concerned about.
Listen.
And I don't want to have a conversation. You know what I'm saying? That's not a conversation for me.
Look,
I
think the conversation about race is subterfuge. I think that it is maximum sophisticated confusion, right? I think that it distracts us from what we should be doing, right? We should be trying to survive. And the only way to survive is to have economic power and to have political power. That's it. There's no other way that you're going to survive. If you believe, so when we were having a conversation, right, so I'm going to go back to Farrakhan. Remember Farrakhan, we were talking about whether we're existing or surviving, right? And I said, no, we're not surviving. And he said, oh, brother says, I'm just out here surviving. You're not surviving. You're existing. See, surviving is something active, right? Those folks that you talked about in New York, Kevin, that's what you saw, survival, right? You saw them actively surviving, right? They were doing things to survive, right? They power, economic, political power that led to this, right? All of it just kind of, over here, you have people just existing. They're not surviving.
Well, even in the academic, think about this for a second. Even in our academic space, they say that we have the most students in New Jersey that go to college. They attend college in the city of Newark. All of that doesn't spill off into the street in the city of Newark. Maybe for maybe an hour or two. Really think about it. Now, this was at 8 o'clock in the evening, 7 o'clock in the evening that I'm talking to you about. Those people were spilled out onto the street. So if we go downtown at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock, there is nobody in the college community on the streets in the city of Newark. No one. So that tells you right there. No one. So the academic community, right, the higher education community, where I think some smart people attend, don't even understand the psychosis of that. I'm just going to get the spikes.
Call and go.
And then hell no, Eric. We should not be trying to survive. We need to be trying to win. This is a bad. We have to win. Surviving? Who the hell want to survive? Surviving ain't fun. Just finishing the race don't matter.
Right.
We want to win the race.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
That's it. That's
no. So what I'm gonna say. Look. I don't know how you define. So this is what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say surviving is winning, because I don't know how you define winning. $50 billion, $200 trillion, or whatever. I think the person who's the last man standing. Right? So I can't quantify that with anything other than the fact that you're the last man standing, right? Darwinism, survival, right? So that's what it is. If I'm looking at the laws of the jungle, right? I'm saying, well, who survived? Who survived that last battle? The orangutan or the lion. Who survived it? Winning, they survived it. So survival and the last man standing. And I'm saying we have to be climbing to survive. Climbing to survive. We have to be actively doing something. And the only way, because of the way that this world functions, is through economic and political power.
Well, when I think of what Farrakhan said as far as winning is concerned, I think that, again, both of you are correct, but winning, it's all about, in our society, it's about winning and losing. Right now, my team is losing. So, we got to get rid of the bad players that's on our team, which is the Negro Whisperers. We got to reorganize our forward, our point guard. We might have to get a quicker point guard or a better small forward. I mean, we could break it down in any kind of sport analogy that you choose to break it down in. But right now, our team is losing.
See,
so in order for people to function, structurally understand what you're saying, Eric, is that it's about time we start winning. And you say it all the time. You've analyzed it again. You broke it down. We say it all the time on the show. Winning is economic power and political power. That's the mandate. That's the new ethos. That's the new theology. Anything outside of that space is maximum sophisticated confusion.
See, and
right?
You know what?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and this happened to me literally just now in real time. I'm gonna pull back from the winning and losing thing, and I'm gonna say living and dying. Right? I'm gonna say living and dying. Like they're living, we're dying.
Living and dying.
Living and dying. See, because winning and losing, like literally, I'm thinking about it, and I'm saying, well, what does that mean? Winning and losing. What does it mean to win? What does it mean to lose? But I know what it means to die, right? So when we look at these statistics that say, because they lead to something, right? It doesn't just lead to what we might say is losing. To be in poverty means what? That you have a greater mortality rate, right? To not be able to eat properly, right? And have to eat garbage food because you can't afford to buy healthy food means what? In the end, it means that you're gonna die faster, right? So winning and losing, I don't know. I gotta rethink that. But I think what it comes down to again is survival, right? So you want to the idea of having a job that provides a cost of living could mean that you can afford health care, right? Could mean that you don't have certain kind of stressors that lead you down a quicker path of death. So like these things are connected to something more tangible than just saying winning and losing. They're connected to living and dying. Right? And so if we look at it and start framing it like that and saying, well, that team is living. They're living. They have a greater life expectancy. They're healthier, right? Our team is dying, right? We have greater mortality rates. So I'm gonna give some more thought to that, but I think that it's not just winning and losing. I think that the stakes are higher than winning and losing. It's survival. It's living and dying. And I think that we're dying. I think that we're, like I said, I think we're on hospice, and we are just being kept comfortable while we die. We're not being empowered to live, right? And we're not seizing power. And then, let me not say being empowered, because that's passive, right? So that means that somebody's got to give it to you. We're not empowering ourselves. We're not seizing power. We don't understand the idea, and maybe it is, back to the Willie Lynch letter, right? Maybe it is the immaturity in us, Kevin, that doesn't understand that we need this to survive. We need economic power. We need political power to survive. We need it. It is mandatory. Without it, we will die. When we keep saying 2053, it's not just a number that we're putting out there. And then when we say there'll be zero wealth, that's not, that's tied to something, right? So when we say that we'll have zero wealth, well, then what does that mean for our team? It doesn't just mean that we lost. You understand what I'm saying? It means that we're going to be dying. This is serious. And then so now when we look at these people who put out this goddamn so it goes all the way back to the person who asked me, Kevin, well, what is your platform? Eric, you're running for Congress. What are you going to do? So now when I paint all of this for you, what more is there to say than I am going to fight like hell for economic and political power? Because anything else I tell you, any bullet point that I put on that literature is bullshit. Because if I don't have if I'm not fighting for economic and political power to be the undergirding of everything else, then nothing's going to happen, which is why nothing fundamentally changes. That's why nothing fundamentally changes.
All right.
Because they're not fighting for you. So I would say to you that Ron Rice and his decision to support Biden, he's not fighting for economic and political power. Not. Your current congressman in the 10th Congressional District has never fought for economic and political power. U.S. Senator Cory Booker didn't go into the presidential campaign to fight for economic and political power. And as U.S. Senator, he didn't fight, he is not fighting for economic and political power. As mayor, he did not fight for economic and political power. Let's go down a list of them. None of them. Tony Voss, Ted Green, Dwayne Warren, Ras Baraka. None of them fighting for economic and political power. They're caping for the establishment. And as my friend said, they're living deliciously off of your misery. Facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah. We have how many days, Eric? We have how many days? I know you probably will know this better than anybody. How many days do we have to the next presidential election? 6 months, 5 months?
Well, we're January 11 months, right? Because we're closing out on January, so 10 months. November is the election. Mm-hmm.
So,
but the primary,
I have.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, buddy. I have a challenge for all of us. So we have 10 months. We've just talked about down ballot. What down ballot is. I mean, we need to keep talking about that so people can get it into their mindset about why they have to bring more value to their vote based on the principles that you just outlined. We have 12 months, 11 months. How many months left? Whatever. I think what we should do is each and every one of us that are listening to this show, I think that this is a first test to see if you understand what we're talking about. So as you're talking and you're listening to these candidates, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and if you're in their space, we would love for you to ask them that question. What is your platform? And now I'm saying this to be slightly cynical, but if it's not economic power and it's not political power, there's no platform, because there's nothing that they're going to ever do to make your life better if they're selling you the same garbage as everybody else is selling.
That's right. That's right.
I think that's a great test. So you can ask them, can you please explain to me your platform? So if they start rattling off all of these other things, you know that's not your candidate. You know that they're not consciously prepared to deal with the crisis that you're in the middle of, the horror that you're living, and the condition in your neighborhoods. They're giving you Democratic talking points as the saving my black butt talking point. So it would be interesting that anybody that's listening, and when they see a candidate, or they get a number of a candidate, or they find some situation, they can ask that question to them. I would love for them to come back on the show and tell us what they said. Because anything else is maximum sophisticated confusion, as we have outlined. Everybody now knows what that means, hopefully. Yeah. But think about that, Eric. That's the question. What is your platform for me? What is your platform for my community? What is your platform for either surviving and winning, however you want to interpret it? And if they're not talking about that one principle, that one thing that you said over and over again in the last 24 hours, they're not your candidate. You should never have those people represent you. I'm talking about ones that are running for office and ones that are presently holding on. Now, if they come back and they say something in the spirit of political power and economic power, say, well, you can't be hired anymore because you haven't been working on that for 8 years. You can't be hired anymore because you haven't been working on that for 16 years.
Well,
you can't be hired. You know what I'm saying?
Well, here's the thing about that. Here's the thing about that, right? Because we know that politicians are crafty, right? And they're skillful at being chameleons. So if they start to believe that a certain narrative is catching hold, it's just like progressive, right? What did they do? They said, oh, shoot, I got to go run and say I'm progressive, right? Just like when Black Lives Matter came out, they said, oh, yeah, Black Lives Matter, until it didn't have teeth anymore, and then Black Lives didn't matter anymore, right? And then they said, oh, yeah, we need to talk about reparations, or we need to talk about this, that, and the other. But then that got moved off as soon as it had no teeth and no real power to it. So if something begins to bubble up, politicians are crafty enough to be chameleons and kind of take on the persona of that thing. But what I would say is this: here's the greatest litmus test, and I said this before yesterday. If you believe that the greatest existential threat is that we lack political and economic power, right? And then you say, well, who is actively participating in denying foundational Black Americans, right, through policies, economic and political power? Well, you say Democratic Party and Republican Party, right? I mean, that's it, right? Those are the apparati that are doing that. Democratic and Democrat and Republican Party, who are caping for the corporation of white supremacy, right? So now can we be clear on that? So now we have to destroy the Democratic and Republican Party as it currently exists. But if you have a politician who comes to you and says, yeah, I understand the greatest existential threat is that we don't have economic and political power, and I'm going to fight for that. And you say, when was the last time you wrote a check to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party? Well, now, see, if you're feeding a beast that's killing me, then guess what? You're a liar. You're a hypocrite. You can't feed that beast, because once we understand the greatest existential threat is being caused by that beast, but you're going down to League of Municipality and partying with them. Hello. Do you understand? So, Kevin, see, it should be real. It should be real clear to you all. See, you can't go and walk with the devil. You can't do that. So if we identify the party, and that's why I said to Sandrod in the thread, I'm not just looking at the Democrat Party. Both parties, right, produce what we see on the national stage right now. Both of them. And what we see in our communities. Both parties are responsible for that. Right? George Washington said that in 1790 something, that this was going to happen.
Yep.
Because of both of these parties. And so both parties have to be held accountable. So as long as people are writing checks to those two parties, you're not on my team. Because my team says we have to blow them up. To Farrakhan's point, that's where the separation comes from. We got to separate from that mentality. That somehow getting inside the system. Somebody said to me the other day, hey man, sometimes you got to work inside the system to do. No, you operate on the outside, which is why I love AOC. I love the fact that she's saying I'm operating on the outside of all of this crazy nonsense. I'm not feeding it. I'm building my political base over here, and I'm letting you guys know, I'm not hiding it, that we're coming to destroy you, that I will be using the money that I raise to support candidates that oppose you.
That kind of thinking, Eric, is what I call political malpractice. We've been engaged in political malpractice for decades now. And to your point, and I agree with you, and to your point, we have to blow this up. The rationalization that we got to be in the system to make the system, that's just not logical anymore. It never was logical. It was sold to us over the years, and we might have purchased it a little bit until we got a little bit more sophisticated. That's not appropriate. When people talk like that to you, I just want you to think and look at their forehead and say, Negro whisper. that doesn't work anymore. That's a failed strategy. Because guess what? We got more black people in the system now doing nothing for black people all over this country.
All over this country.
So obviously that doesn't work. That's a failed experiment. It's a failed experiment. So when people talk like that to you, the listeners, be leery. Because they're selling garbage as hope. They're engaged in poverty propaganda. They're trying to herd you like cattle for their benefit. And guess what? They don't care if you die. That's a fact. Failed experiment. That does not work. Because that means you're participating in their mousetrap, which is definitely designed to make sure you live where? In poverty for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
So we got to even shut them down when they come and talk to you like that. Like, no. We're not buying that program anymore. We've got an inoculation from you. We've identified who you are. We now know what you smell like, we know what you look like, and we know what comes out of your mouth. And it's like, people say, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, Eric, in California. He was saying, well, Kev, I listened to the show. It's a great show. And we just having fun on the phone talking. And then I thought about it because he's a very spiritual person, and he goes to church. He goes to church, but he's a spiritual person. I said, when you go to church every Sunday, what do you listen to? I said, I listen to stories about Jesus Christ, and I listen to faith stories that help me every day, Kevin. And I said, okay, so when you listen to our show, what do you listen to? Don't you listen to the same stories over and over again to give you some fulfillment, to connect you to, God, seeking God's face and all those things? He said, yeah. I said, so when you listen to our show, what do you think? He says, well, I think we're in trouble. I said, oh, okay. Well, I would have never expected that from you. But I said, but you see how we having this circular conversation? I said, when you go to church, you're having a circular conversation too. Our circular conversation is to break the bondage, or to break that chain, or to disconnect ourselves from all of the sickness that's been harming. So when I turn on this show and I come on the show and I talk with you, Eric, right, that is what I'm doing when I'm having this conversation with you. And it's somewhat spiritual and it's somewhat painful, right? But it's obvious to me that if we're not having these conversations, we're actually settling for all of the things that we know that's going to happen to us in 2053.
Absolutely.
So if you could go to church on Sunday and listen to those same stories, right? You can turn on this show and listen to these stories that's going to lead us out of this sickness. And there are other people out there talking about it. There's nothing more important.
Well, Kevin, here's the thing, right? So folks say, circular conversation.
No, but I actually loved it when they brought that up. No, I forgot. I think Tommy Farmer did that for us.
Right.
He said, somebody said that. Yeah, I appreciate it.
So they say circular conversation. They seem to be going round and round and round. And I'm saying, but things are not changing, right? So why should I move on? You know what I mean? Things are not changing. They haven't changed. So why should I move on? I should continue to teach the same lesson. It's kind of like you being in school and you haven't, and the teacher's trying to explain to you that until you learn arithmetic, you can't move on to algebra, right? Until you learn how to add, you can't learn how to multiply. Until you learn, And so now when the teacher gives you an assignment and you return the paper, and you got F's on your addition, and then the question is being asked, well, why haven't we moved on to multiplication? Well, because I know that you're going to fail at multiplication because you haven't mastered addition. So when I look and see that election cycle after election cycle, folks are still doing the exact same thing, I say they haven't learned, right? When I look in the threads and I see that a majority of the people are still caping for politicians who are caping for the party who is caping for the corporation white supremacy. So I'm going to say that again. See, because at the end of the day, you're talking about, this corporation white supremacy that you are supporting. So like down here, you're supporting the politician who's supporting the party who is supporting the corporation white supremacy. Should I say that one more time? You are...
Yeah, say that one more time.
I mean, because they got to understand this, right? Because on one hand, I'm telling you, Kev, on one hand, they go, man, you got this, you got racism, you got this, you got all these things, right? And they're complaining about all of these things that are being pushed down on us because of policies and thinking, right? How they see us. But that whole system, right, is monitored by the corporation white supremacy. Now, so they're up there, but now you're down here, and you're supporting the politician who's supporting the political party that is supporting the corporation of white supremacy. So when you say, Kevin, so when you say on the show that they are participating in their own homicide, well, there you have it. That's it right there, guys.
Yeah.
Rewind that later and play it again, and just keep playing that, because that's what's happening. That's what's happening.
Yeah. Well, my friend, I'm going to have to go because I'm on assignment today, and I just got to tell you, I hope everybody has a great day. And again, Eric, thank you for keeping us on code, as we say in our family, right, Eric? We got to stay on code.
Absolutely, man. Listen.
But anyway, I'll call you later, and we'll finish up.
Absolutely, you be good, Kev.
No problem, buddy.
So, I guess, I don't really have much more to say about the Kobe Bryant situation. Oh, you know what? I am gonna say this, and I don't know, and because I don't know, I'm gonna get in trouble for this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I'm taking a deep breath because I know it's gonna happen. The reporter, what's her name? The MSNBC anchor. She said she denies using the racial slur during the Kobe Bryant reporting. And what she said was that she was combining the name of two teams. The Knicks, or the New York Knickerbockers, right? And the Lakers. So Knickerbockers, Lakers. And she was combining those two teams. The names of those two teams in her head, and what came out was a combination of the two, but it was never the word that people said she said. Now, that's her account. I don't know how you dispute her account. I just gotta say, like, I don't know how you dispute it. If that was her account, and she said this is what happened, and what I would say beyond that is this: if there is no evidence in the past that she has done anything, and I don't know that there is because I haven't researched it, I just kind of see the headlines as I'm focused on this other stuff. But if there's no evidence that she has ever done anything like this, why are we so quick to say she did it now? That's the only question that I have. So if she has in whatever her broadcasting career has been, she has had no evidence of ever doing anything like this, has to me then what could be a reasonable, and I use the word could in quotes, a reasonable explanation as a sports anchor, right? Combining the names of two teams, because there was some news I understand about the Knicks as well. So this news about Kobe Bryant coming out, right, was hard-hitting, breaking news, and everybody was scrambling around trying to get that together. But whatever she may have been preparing to talk about throughout the day, right, that may still have been on her mind. May have been. I'm simply saying may have been. And so if we're going to completely discount the mere possibility, and we're going to leapfrog past or over her history, if she has a stellar, squeaky clean history of dealing with folks, meaning that she has not used the N-word, then I'm trying to understand how we became so hypersensitive to this, how we jumped on it and jumped on her and canceled her so quickly. I don't understand. If somebody can call me and answer that for me, that would be helpful. But and if I can't find anything in her past that suggests that, then I have to look at her overall character, not just this snippet. And her overall character has to play a part in the decision that I make to in a court of public opinion, acquit her or find her guilty. But I see that a lot of other people haven't taken that position. I also saw somebody put up that they're concerned about some suspicious something with regard to Kobe Bryant's helicopter. Again, I haven't paid that much attention to it, so I don't know. I just know again that it's devastating. 9 people killed, children, adults, parents, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, and so that is the thing that concerns me most. Now, I gotta on to man. I tell you, I just can't get enough of this Ron Rice thing, and and I'm gonna stay on it. And again, my intention, and I'll let you guys know how it goes. My intention is to call Senator Rice's office and invite him on the show. I think that he owes us an explanation now, because he is our senator. So he owes us an explanation. And outside of just him, before they all come jumping over each other to support Joe Biden, I'd like to ask all of them, all of these folks who are, and if not this show, I get it, right? Because maybe the questions that we ask are too straightforward. Maybe we're too no nonsense. Maybe we're too direct and too honest, right? So maybe this isn't the show for you. But go on some show so we can at least hear you, right? Not through a press release that goes out to the newspaper and then you kind of hide behind the scenes while the political storm dies over before you rear your ugly head. So go somewhere where folks can call in. If it's that Rutgers channel, or you like the WBLS, if they make you feel more comfortable in your lives, then go there. But allow people to call in and ask you why you've chosen to operate outside of the best interest, and understand again the best interest of our community is seizing economic and political power. And why you choose to operate outside of our best interest. I would love to hear the answer to that question. And then again, the next question is, if you understand that the greatest existential threat is that we do not have political and economic power, and understanding where that force of denying us through policies, economic and political power, why you're feeding that source by writing checks to them and co-signing their candidates. I know what I want to talk about. So Donald Trump is coming to New Jersey and going to have a massive rally. And I saw on, I think it was Montclair Patch, that they're protesting it. Why? Why are you protesting his rally? Let him have his rally. If you don't want him in office, then organize and mobilize around that, right? Not protesting his rally, his right to have a rally, right? Because he can come here, he can be in New Jersey, those people can assemble. And I'm not saying that you don't have a right to have a rally, because you do, right? And you do have a right to protest. But the question I'm asking is, what is the protest gonna get you? What is it gonna yield? See, we have to focus on what our end objectives are. So if the protest is simply to get you some FaceTime on the camera, right, get you some headlines in the media, then I guess you will fulfill that, right? But that's not gonna move the needle. And specifically for black folk, if you show up at that rally, I'm going to shame you, because you need to show up at the schools for your kids. You need to show up at the council meetings in your towns. You need to show up for those kinds of things, not at a Trump rally protesting it. That's not where you need to be. You need to, and the folks in Montclair, you need to show up for the racial tracking that takes place in those schools. You see, those are the things that we need to show up for. But that you're going to go show up for a Trump rally? I would ask the folks in South Orange, Maplewood, are you showing up for the segregation that still exists in South Orange? Right? Those are the things that you need to show up for. So this whole idea of showing up to protest Trump, I keep saying to you, show up to protest the system that created Trump. Otherwise, you're going to have another Trump. Show up to tear down the system that created Trump. But I saw it on the news. Oh, Trump's going to have this rally. People are going to show up. They're going to protest. They're going to do whatever. It is all maximum sophisticated confusion. Once you understand what the true objective is, and for foundational Black Americans, it is to seize economic and political power. Showing up at that rally is not going to do that. And anybody who tries to drag you to that rally, they're your enemy, because they should be working with you to help you seize economic and political power, not waste your time at a rally. And for those people who do go to a rally, even if they don't invite you, but they tell you it's a good thing for them to go, it's maximum sophisticated confusion. Because them going to that rally without going down to and rallying against the Democratic Party, which is also responsible for creating Trump, right? It's all a lie. What is the other thing think that I may have covered most of what I wanted to talk about, because most of it was really about not Donald Payne, was really about Ron Rice, Senator Rice, and what Senator Rice did. So I guess I'll spend the last bit of time then talking about the polls that are coming out, and I think that we should be paying attention to them. Oh, I know what else. I posted that first Hillary Clinton came out and said that nobody liked Bernie Sanders, and then Hillary Clinton came out and said, or at least something that I read said that she would be in support of Bernie Sanders, and then I posted whether or not it would hurt or help him, and somebody in the thread commented that she has a lot of supporters that will come over and support Bernie Sanders. I'm gonna finish my commentary on that, but Diane L. Murray Clemens just called in, so I'm gonna take her call. Hey, Diane.
Hey, good morning. How are you? Almost afternoon.
You know what, Diane? I'm heated.
You what?
I'm heated. I'm just like, I'm exercised. That's it. I'm exercised.
Yeah, I posted that earlier sometime last night about Senator Ron Rice, and I'm just disappointed. But I also see it from his side too, that I think people see these elected officials as being able to talk for them about all of their issues, but in reality they are one-offers. So they'll jump on this issue or they'll jump on that issue, like you said, whatever's popular at that particular time. But if you go, I don't know if you went in and read his actual statement as to his reasons why he was supporting Biden. I just thought the reasons itself were asinine.
Well, I didn't bother to read it because I knew it was going to be maximum sophisticated confusion, so I didn't waste my time. But if you could just highlight what they were, that'd be helpful.
Well, he went in to talk about how Biden, has done stuff for the community, and he's a supporter of the community. It was just nonsense, right. Really. It was fillers. It was nonsense, and that's why I was disappointed that everything we know about Biden being the author of the criminalization system set up to imprison and keep black people underneath his foot. This black man, as the senator, comes out and says, "Oh, he's the best thing next to sliced bread." And then there was some comments under my post, and people said, "Well, what's wrong with Biden? He stood next to Obama." I'm like, do y'all even pay attention to what happens, or is it just my situation is good and fine? I haven't been negatively affected, and everything else that you're just dismissive to.
Well, you know what, Diane? So, but here's the thing, and we were talking about this earlier on the show. We gotta be real specific, right? So when politicians or elected officials, when leaders of faith-based organizations or folks who are running these nonprofits, or the Negro Whisperers and the slave catchers are running around talking about what people are doing for the community, right? Because that's what we hear, right? That is the maximum sophisticated confusion. This one's doing that for the community. So this one's in the community. Oh, we always see them around the community. Oh, they putting in work. We hear all of those different sayings, right? So I never saw you in the community, right? Why should I? So here's the thing, right? To what end? To what end is whatever work you're talking about being done? And so I'm suggesting that the only thing we should be focused on, our only interest, should be seizing economic and political power. That's it. So if you're coming to me with something else and you're saying to me, you tap dancing and you shucking and jiving and you boot licking about how you did this thing, and I say, well, okay, explain to me how doing that furthers my cause for economic and political power, and there's no connection between the two, then you're a waste of my time. So if we go through Biden's track record, right? Whatever it is, and we could talk about him, being the author of the crime bill and all those other kinds of things, and his relationship with big business and what he did to destroy us with his relationship with the credit card industry, and we could talk about all that, right? But I would say, well, whatever work, Ron Rice, you want to tell me that Joe Biden has done to improve the black community, tell me how that has moved us closer to economic and political power. There we go. Now, when you can't answer that question, I'm done, because that means that he is not interested in it. Now, he, out of his own mouth, told those donors nothing was going to fundamentally change. So now, Senator Rice, if you now have that information, because let's assume you didn't have it before, so now you're going to cape for him, or you're going to love us? Or I got to ask that question, not just of non-black folks, but of black folks too. Do you hate black people? Because if you got to understand, Senator Rice, that the only thing that is going to get us out of the condition we're in is seizing economic and political power. And so as long as you're lying to people and telling them that it's going to be something else, telling us it's going to be Biden, and you're lying about the things that he's done and somehow saying that those things that he's done has helped us, when you know the only thing that will help us is seizing economic and political power, then you're lying to us. So do you hate black people?
Yeah.
I mean, you understand what I'm saying, Diane? Like, we got to really just have those conversations. Like, anybody, I don't care who you are. And Kevin is right. I'm going to lose a lot of friends. A lot of them. A lot of them, because I got to ask you, how much do you hate us? That you're denying us, that you were standing in the way by selling us garbage as hope, by pushing this propaganda, that somehow having a men's meeting in City Hall is going to lead us to prosperity. That's a lie, Raz. Seizing economic and political power is the only way. So now, if we're not seizing economic and political power, then you're lying to us. And now, here's the other thing. We have to seize economic and political power from the same entity that you're currently funding every time you write a check to them. So now, how do you add that up? The same people you go and take selfies with, the same people you hung out at the League of Municipalities with, the same people you get on an airplane and fly to Puerto Rico with, those are the people we're trying to seize economic and political power from.
Yeah, you got to ask them.
You understand what I'm saying? So you go do that, right? And then you fund them, and then you go and you hold this men's meeting, and you try to convince these black folks sitting there in City Hall that they can have some power. It's a lie. It is a lie. See, so any of you who ever want to have some kind of conversation with me about all of this, you're welcome to come on air and we can have it. But see, I'm standing on solid ground, knowing what's a lie and what's not a lie. And the reason you will never come here, and the reason why people like Bob Pickett on WBLS will never challenge you, because he's caping for them too. Or the guy who runs the Rutgers station, he's caping for them too. And the other people who tried to start radio shows, they were caping for them too. But the real truth is, economic and political power is the only way. And to Farrakhan's point, it is separating, but it's separating mentally. Shifting the paradigm and saying, I am not beholden to any party. Any party. And you know what's interesting, Diane? Somebody called me and said, Eric, you're running as a Democrat for Congress. I said, but they're only two parties, right? Like the system is set up like that, right? So, but here's the difference. This is the difference, right? The difference is I am not funding that beast. I think that you're still going to wind up with two parts. I don't think you're ever going to really have, the way things are set up, you need a tremendous amount of money, right? And we should be building for that too. But the thing is, you starve the existing beast, right? And that's all those people who, when they write, what do they call it, dues to the party, right? And then those party bosses decide, what tentacles they're going to feed to continue to suppress and subjugate the people. You don't fund them. You do like AOC did, and you say, I'm not going to fund that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my money and I'm going to go fund somebody who I believe is working toward, seizing economic and political power. Not funding somebody who is just going to be a slave catcher or a Negro whisperer. So, anyway, I'm disappointed. It's sad. It is sad because it is in broad daylight that we see who he is, and we'll see who the rest of them are, because they're going to come out. They're all going to come out because they're being told to in a lot of cases. Well, if you come out and you support, you get this. If you come out and you do this, you're going to get that. Not that the community is going to benefit in any way, but that these individuals will get it. So, and then the last thing, how does Senator Rice go down and he rails against the establishment, right? Because that's who he is, right? He's an anti-establishment state senator, right? So he says, elect me outside of the system because I'm not running on the line. I'm fighting against the people who are on the line. But then at the top of the ticket, remember I told you down ballot, the top of the ticket, that guy, they raise money nationally to fund the people that Ron Rice tells you he's fighting against. I want you to understand the hypocrisy of that. So Ron Rice supporting Joe Biden, the Democratic Party, National Democratic Party's pick, is that National Democratic Party funds, right, the governor's race, funds some of the U.S. senators' races, funds those, that money comes from there. That's where those dues come from. So you mean to tell me that Senator Rice writes a check to fund that organization, and then he's going to fight against that organization? So I say he's got a sweet situation, Diane. He's figured out how to maintain his state Senate seat, convincing people that he's fighting for them. Well, all he's doing is creating a problem and then saying that he's the problem solver to that very problem. Yo, that's a hustle.
It's ingenious.
That's a hustle, man. That is a hustle, Senator Rice. And folks need to act accordingly. They need to step up and they need to look and say, this man has done nothing. Done nothing. Done absolutely nothing. And what's sad is not that I said it. What's sad is that our people have to continue to live in those conditions. I want to thank you all for tuning into the show. I got to go to my doctor, Diane. My doctor tunes into the show now, and then she tells me afterwards, she's like, Eric, you take care of yourself. So I know I'm going to get yelled at today for being exercised.
Being extra, exactly.
For being exercised. But you know what? Listen, I love my people. I do. Anyway, we're out. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Oh, I got to call Farrakhan. Farrakhan, if you're watching, we're coming Thursday, right, Diane?
Yes, Thursday for the book.
Thursday for the book. The Willie Lynch Letter and the Making of a Slave. I'm out.
All right. Take care. Have a great day.